Hey everyone, James here again, and today I'm going to give you advice on how to pitch a music editor. Now this is speaking specifically to music writers or aspiring journalists, and even artists who consider writing about music. If you're a musician trying to get the attention of blogs, this advice is not really going to apply to you, but feel free to watch anyway. We'd love to have you stick around. And right before we dive in, I just want to say that I have a background in music journalism and I've tried everything in this video myself with great success. Of course, you never win all the time and that's perfectly okay. Journalism is a game just like the music business. You're going to win some, you're going to lose a lot more, but it's worth putting in the work. And all this advice is also found on our blog, holicsdaily.com, where you can find far more information. It was provided to us by Dan Ozzi, former editor of Noisey and best-selling author of Laura Jane Grace's book, Tranny, as well as other great projects. He's a good guy. This advice is what worked for him, it's what worked for me, and it will work for you too. So let's get into it. Before you even think of writing a music editor, make sure that you have a fully thought out idea. You don't want to come at them half-cocked with some idea that might seem good, but you don't really have reasoning for it or examples or sources, just an idea. For example, you can't just say, I want to write an article called Madonna was the original Miley Cyrus. While that may be true, and I might understand what you're trying to tell me, you need to give me a little bit more than that. You have to give me a reason to click on the story. At the same time, music editors are incredibly busy and they don't have a lot of time to read pitches. So you need to make sure that you don't send them 5 or 6 paragraphs expecting them to read through all of it to get the gist of your idea about Madonna and Miley. Instead, you want to master the elevator pitch, which is a very, very short version of your idea, usually 1 to 2 sentences at max, that tells us everything we need to know to make us want to buy your story. So you wouldn't just say Madonna was the original Miley Cyrus. You would say Madonna was the original Miley Cyrus because A, B, and C. Or Madonna was the originally Miley Cyrus says reputable source that would make me want to click on the article. Think about it as if you're giving them the headline to the story. And if what you tell them makes them want to click on that headline, then you've sold your pitch. But if you can't do that, your story's dead on arrival. Next, it's really important that you know your audience, not just in terms of who would want to read this content, but what the people you are pitching the idea to are interested in. For example, if you work with a lo-fi hip-hop artist known for their ability to use spoken word poetry over minimalist beats, you might not want to pitch them to someone like Metal Sucks. Metal Sucks doesn't run content on artists of that sort, and your pitch is probably not going to change their minds. However, if you have a really good metal band that has a really interesting story that you think the metal world would enjoy knowing about, Metal Sucks is a good place to pitch. But even if you have content that matches the site you're trying to pitch, you also need to understand the editor that you're pitching. Chances are that they write for that site fairly often, so you can do a little bit of research on them. You can learn what their interests are. And when you email them, you can use their first name. And you can also refer to things that they've recently written. If their name is Tom, for example, you could be like, Tom, I really enjoyed that story you posted about this artist that you wrote about that I think that you really enjoy. Start to forge a connection, stroke their ego a little bit, build that connection with them before they even meet you, before they even know what your pitch is. Let them know that you know what you're talking about. Next, while you're composing this email that is both very personable and very to the point, you want to make sure that you have a killer subject line. One that says just pitch, for example, is terrible. A pitch for you? Also awful. Nobody wants to click on that because that just tells me that there is work in this and it might not go anywhere. Instead, look at your subject line the same way you do your elevator pitch. You're trying to give them a reason to click, just like your article will hopefully give people a reason to visit their website. So for example, this rapper only raps in iambic pentameter. That interests me. I don't fully understand how iambic pentameter works, but I know those words and it seems interesting. I'm going to click on it. Or this death metal band comes from rural Iowa. Now, that would be a thing 20 years ago. You might open it and find Slipknot inside. They're not a death metal band, but you know what I'm saying. You want to give them a reason to click on your email. So don't use the word pitch unless you absolutely have to, unless it makes sense for what you're trying to pitch them. But don't just say, I have a pitch for you, because what you're saying is, I have work for you that might not prove beneficial to your day at all. So don't do it. You also need to make sure that your idea is actually yours. And by that I mean, make sure you're not pitching content that already exists. Especially when you're working with very popular artists, there are 2 things that really come into play, which is originality, finding an angle that hasn't already been covered, especially by the people that you're pitching, and timeliness. I recently watched a panel that included the team from Bandcamp, and on the Bandcamp blog, they asked for 2 to 3 months lead on story ideas. So that's how far you need to be thinking ahead. If you have an idea about a record that comes out next week, you might not get it accepted because the time between those two events is just too small. So you need to be thinking ahead of time, and you need to make sure your ideas are original. Because a great elevator pitch is only as good as the content is an original thought. If you're trying to sell something that is easily found everywhere else online, it's not going to go anywhere. 3 more things for you, and then I'll let you go. First and foremost, make sure that you approach the idea of pitching the editor with a little bit of professionalism. I know that the music industry is very chill and very laid back and rather business casual in a general sense, but this is still a job. You're asking somebody to give you money in exchange for work, and you need to treat it as such. If you send an email from your phone, make sure that it doesn't end with "sent from my iPhone," because that can be read as sent while I was doing other things like sitting on the toilet or watching television and not really paying attention to what I'm doing. It doesn't say I'm serious about what I do. You also need to make sure that you're not just pitching bands or artists. Don't say, "I want to interview the Menzingers." That doesn't really tell me what your feature is going to be about. I'm going to assume you're just going to ask them the same 10 questions that every blog asks them, and that doesn't really do me any good. Instead, give me a story based around that artist. Give me an idea that I can sink my teeth into that'll make me, once again, want to click on the thing that you're trying to sell. And finally, along those same lines, make sure that you're swinging within your leagues. If you don't have a connection to Kanye West, don't pitch an idea where you interview Kanye West, because it's not the job of the music editor or the music publication to connect you with the artist that you're trying to pitch a story around. You want to make sure that you can make the thing happen that you're selling, because if you can't, word's going to get out, and not only will your current pitch not work out, but you'll have a hard time pitching in the future because all editors talk, all editors know each other. It's a rather small community. So again, make sure that you can actually do the thing that you're pitching. Don't lie, don't oversell yourself, keep it real, and you'll get ahead. I know this is a lot of information, and you may be thinking to yourself, I think I have all the pieces, but I don't really know how to put them together, and I have the perfect solution. On our blog, holicsdaily.com, there's a link in the description below. Go there and there is a sample pitch letter. Now, don't copy paste this and throw in your own idea. Use this as a blueprint, a foundation for how to write a pitch email moving forward. Go to the blog, check it out, and hopefully, just hopefully, with a little bit of luck, your story will get accepted. And if you want even more advice on the music business, networking, getting to know bands, promoting music, go ahead and subscribe to this channel, because that's what we do here. We're all about understanding and navigating the music business. So if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. And if you have my sincerest thanks. I cannot do this without you. And I ask that you please, please, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it.